Hello everyone, welcome to another video on my channel in which we take a short walk through Central Park. Well, I wouldn't say a short walk. You see, you are gonna be taking a short walk. Me, on the other hand, no. You see, I walked the whole park trying to hit upon all the main attractions, which translated to 36,917 steps. That is over 17 miles, almost 28 kilometers of walking. Some may call this dedication, others insanity. Whatever it was, at the end, I was doubting my own existence. And for the first time in my life, I had to sit on a bench and pretend I was resting, even though inside, I was screaming for medical attention. But here we are. You know, a while back, I read somewhere that Central Park is one of the most, if not the most photographed places in the world. And certainly that is true for the film and TV industry. I had to double check, and so I asked someone far more powerful and knowledgeable than I, Professor Google, and it seems to be correct. Therefore, in this video, I will not try to reinvent the wheel, as I am sure there are plenty of images and clips of Central Parks on YouTube already, but I wanted to add some of my own footage. All jokes aside, I truly did walk through the whole park, and those steps I showed you a few seconds ago are indeed real. I entered the park on the east side at about 75th Street or so, and then made my way down and across to the other side of the park, the west side, exploring as many places as I could think of in the middle. Then I walked on the west side all the way to the end of the park, going up north, and back to the east side again, exploring as much as I could. And I ended up roughly in the same spot as I entered, since I parked my car just about a block away. Now, I cannot show everything, not because I do not have photos, because I probably do, but first, this would have been a very long video, and second, I do not think it would actually be interesting for many if I simply just showed one monument and one statue after another, because oh, there are so many. That is why I will show a lot of them, but not all of them. And you can see them all either by walking, like I did, renting a bike to cover more ground, or get on a pedicab and someone else will be pedaling and doing the work for you, or maybe even getting on a horse-drawn carriage. There is nothing better about this city than sitting in the back of a pooping animal and enjoying the smells and sights while paying $100 per 30 minutes. But to be fair, if you are in the city, it's an experience and something to really remember and cherish. Throughout the park, there are many places you can also buy some fast food, but there are restaurants and more elegant places to eat as well. Some are more expensive than others, therefore if you are planning to visit Central Park, I would simply suggest using Google Maps to see the locations of the restaurants inside of the park itself and their menus, as there are not too many of them, and you can plan your trip at the same time. There are numerous locations also for playgrounds, if for example you are with small kids, to give them some time to also relax and play. But probably nothing will get them more excited than the Central Park Zoo, located roughly around 5th Avenue and 65th Street. Next to the zoo, we have this building here, the Arsenal. Built between 1847 and 1851, it was almost immediately purchased by the city to build Central Park. And today it is the headquarters of New York City Parks and Zoo. It also has a gallery and much history inside, as over the years it served many different purposes, including the fact that it was the first location of the American Museum of Natural History. Walking through the park is a very peaceful experience and an oasis from the busy streets of New York City. A place where people from all backgrounds can enjoy nature and each other's company. I mean, that was the original intent behind the park. By 1850s, as the city grew, there was no real public park in Manhattan. There were few small places like Bryant Park, but many green places were really private property and not open to the public. Hence, in 1853, the city approved a park north of 59th Street, and today it runs about 2.5 miles in length and about a half a mile in width. It was designed by Frederick Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, famous designers. Frederick also designed the Prospect Park in Brooklyn, which I will show you in the future as well. The park took over 20 years to complete for various reasons. One reason being the fact that there was an American Civil War starting in 1861, which put a halt to the project. If you need to drive through the park itself, there are 4 different locations where roads cut from one side to the other. Walking through the park, I began to really pay attention to things that many times never caught my eye before, like these old style lights, which are just really nice. Or this wooden bench. A fountain, which includes a fountain all the way at the bottom for pets to drink water from. Or these phones. These are becoming a relic of the past, with everyone having cell phones these days. But even when I was growing up, I remember they were seen at many street corners. Or in general, just the detailed work that went into making some of these bridges and arches. And oh yes, speaking of bridges and arches, there are many of them throughout the park. In fact, more than 40. And some are really gorgeous, with great attention to detail and beauty. Some are just fantastic locations, like here, the Oak Bridge. The whole area around it is beautiful and perfect for pictures, with these small waterfalls and many paths. One of which leads through the Rumble Stone Arch. On the other side of the lake, we have the famous Bow Bridge, seen in numerous movies. Again, not just the bridge itself being beautiful, but the park and the city behind it as well. Next to the Bow Bridge and on the tip of the lake, we have another very famous location, the Bethesda Fountain, and what's called the mall leading up to it. Again, very popular in movies, like for example, the John Wick movies. And you know, that is how I felt walking through it at this point. I had that theme music going through the back of my head, acting all cool and everything, which was a drastic difference compared to the end of my walk when I looked like a World War I soldier who was shell-shocked, or what we today call post-traumatic stress disorder. Hey, but that is what 17 miles of walking does to you with no adequate food, water, or shoes. This beautiful fountain and the architecture was envisioned to be the gathering place for the people from all walks of life, rich and poor, and in many respects, it was the centerpiece of the park itself. Also, those who need to, we have bathrooms here on the steps. I think I'm getting older. I am beginning to focus on locations of bathrooms, which is, well, weird. But if in doubt, send me an email and I will probably be able to provide bathroom locations at any spot I visited. Here we have the Nürnberg Bandshell, which many times hosts free concerts in the park. And on the right side, there is a plaque dedicated to Edwin Franco Goldman, a famous American composer who many times with his band played in this spot in the summers. And if you would like to read some biographies, oh, there are many monuments here, like this one dedicated to Beethoven, or Victor Herbert, a composer, Fritz Halleck, American poet, Johann Schiller, a German playwright, poet. Oh, he was many things. And here we have a new monument put in only in 2020, the women's rights pioneers. Hey, don't think I am a walking encyclopedia, because I am not. You see, I have a little bit of a cheat sheet. Some of this information is written right here next to the monument. Here is Robert Burns, a Scottish poet, Walter Scott, novelist, Christopher Columbus, and William Shakespeare. Oh, I still remember reading Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet in elementary school. So you see, lots and lots of famous people. Nearby is the Summer Stage in Central Park, a venue which holds numerous free performances. And next to it is the 307th Infantry Regiment Memorial Grove, dedicated to fallen soldiers from World War I. And in two more places throughout the park, we also have war memorials. Like here, the 107th Infantry Memorial, located on 5th Avenue and 67th Street, also honoring World War I soldiers. And this one, the 7th Regiment Memorial, located roughly by 69th Street on the other side of the park, dedicated to fallen soldiers from New York from the American Civil War. Continuing to walk down, at about 67th Street, we have the Native Meadow, where you can relax and enjoy nature and its beauty, just like the original designers intended. And next to it is the Dairy Visitor Center and Gift Shop, which originally was designed as a place where children could get some fresh milk and refreshments. Next to it is the Central Park Carousel, which is over 100 years old. However, before this one that you see right here, there were 3 previous ones, I believe. And the first one, which remained till 1920s, get this, was operated by a horse and a mule, turning the whole thing from under the ground. Kinda cool. And near it is the Chess and Checkers House, built in the 50s to offer a place to play games. And today, it is also one of the visitor centers. Walking down from the Chess and Checkers House, we have something cool on the left and the right side. On the left, the east side, we have the zoo, which I mentioned earlier, and the Wallman Rink. In winter, the famous skating rink in Central Park. And in the summer, as you see, here we have pickleball. Now this has been taking over the city like a storm in every borough. But check out the views in the back. Nice. On the other side, we have the Empire Rock, which not only is another spot to provide gorgeous views of the park and Midtown, but also the geology of the island, the bedrock, and on it various grooves and scratches left behind at the end of the Ice Age, as ice was retreating. As we get close to the first corner of the park, on this small hill right here, we pass the Cop Cot. You know what? Try saying that 3 times really quickly. The Cop Cot. It is a replica of one of the original wooden shelters that stood in the park. And next to it is a pond with, again, fantastic views and relaxing strolls. Here in this spot, there's even a plaque depicting the pond. Pretty nice. And we make it to the first corner, 5th Avenue, 59th Street, the Grand Army Plaza, where we have a big statue of General William Sherman, who was a general for the Union in the American Civil War. Now, some of you might find this name familiar because later the Sherman tanks were named after him, the most commonly used American tanks in World War II. Across the street is the Pulitzer Plaza and Fountain, which are next to the Plaza Hotel, a famous 5-star hotel. As we walk from one corner of the park to the other, we get to pass the horse and carriage rides, and we get to 8th Avenue, Broadway, 59th Street, simply put, the Columbus Circle. This is point 0 for official highway distances to and from the city. For example, if you are traveling into New York City and it says on the side of the highway, New York City, 35 miles, usually this is the point to where it is measured. And the same goes in my videos. I sometimes say that a location is roughly this many miles away from New York City, from Manhattan. This is the location I have in mind. Over there, behind those trees, is the statue of Christopher Columbus, and here I messed up because I took 2 photos and both of them did not come out as the sun was right there on the lens, and I did not realize that. So in the famous words of my students, with late assignments, my bad. And here is the main monument, which honors American sailors, 266 of them, who died on board the USS Maine as it exploded in 1898 in Cuba. What followed shortly after was the Spanish-American War. And this ship exploding was not a direct cause, but certainly at that time, there was a lot of speculation that the Spanish were responsible for it. Although I am not an expert on this history, I believe that after many investigations, till this day, it is still inconclusive in terms of what actually caused the explosion. Some say the Spanish, some the Cubans, others say the Americans themselves, while there's pretty good evidence that it was an accident in which the magazines were ignited from the coal which was used for the fuel. Going now up Central Park on the other side, you come across baseball, softball fields. You can enjoy nice views of the park and the city itself. And when you get up to about 72nd Street, we come into a place called the Strawberry Fields, which pays tribute to John Lennon of the Beatles. He was shot just a feet away from here, killed right in front of his home in 1980. A very famous house, that one right over there, called the Dakota, which many famous people lived in over the years. Imagine one of his more popular songs still plays on the radio till this day. A little further up, around 79th, 80th Street, are three cool places next to each other. First, we have the Swedish Cottage House, which was actually built in Sweden and came to the United States for the 1876 World's Fair, which was organized in Philadelphia. Eventually, it made its way here. Then we walk out of here and get to our second destination, the Belvedere Castle. It was designed in 1865, and beginning in 1919, the National Weather Service began using the castle's tower for measurements, and some measurements are still taken from the area, like wind speed and temperature, till this day. You can go all the way up where you get to see really awesome views. Just be careful walking up the stairs, as it is a pretty tight fit. Right behind the castle, there is the Della Corte Theater, an open-air theater where in the summer various Shakespearean plays are performed. Here we have statues of Romeo and Juliet and The Tempest, both plays by Shakespeare. Walking a bit more up, we have the Great Lawn to the right, a huge oval-shaped space where people come to relax, sunbathe, and picnic. Originally a site of the Croton Reservoir. And to the left here was the Seneca Village, a small village, predominantly African American, with 3 churches, at least 1 school, burial grounds, and it was all demolished when Central Park was being built. The city used eminent domain and the village ceased to exist. This had to be a big moment for those living here, not just because they were forced out, but because there was a law in New York State which stated that African American men needed to own at least $250 worth of property in order to vote. Therefore, this had to have a much wider impact on the community than just physical homes, but also affecting voting and really, in a way, social status. Above 86th Street is Central Park, less traveled, at least by tourists. A big chunk of it is the Jacqueline Kennedy Reservoir, which holds over 1 billion gallons of water, and it's no longer used for the city as a water supply. But I do believe it distributes water throughout Central Park itself. As we come to the third corner on 110th Street, we have the Frederick Douglass sculpture and water wall. Frederick Douglass was born into slavery, escaped, and dedicated his life to the abolition of slavery. What we also have on this side is the Block House, built as part of a fortification system against the British during the War of 1812. It is the oldest surviving building in the park. And finally, walking over to the fourth corner, 110th Street and 5th Avenue, is where we have Duke Ellington's statue. It is hard to imagine the jazz age of the 1920s in America without his contribution to music. In this corner of the park, we have a beautiful lake and some remnants of what used to be a British forts during the American Revolution, and then American forts in the War of 1812. There was Fort Fish and Fort Clinton, and here is the McGovern's Pass, which controlled access to the main road. And Nutter's Battery, which was also connected to the whole fortification system. In what used to be Fort Fish, a marble bench was put honoring the memory of Andrew Haswell Green, who played an important role in the creation of Central Park, as well as other places in the city like the New York Public Library. Moving down at about 105th Street and 5th Avenue is the Conservatory Garden, a beautiful place to relax and look at gorgeous flowers. I will be honest, at this point, I ran out of water to drink, and I realized I chose the wrong shoes for this adventure, but I had no choice. With what I was convinced was blood in my shoes, I had to make it about 40 more streets to my car. And along the way, going through what's called the Museum Mile, like El Museo del Barrio, Museum of the City of New York, Jewish Museum, and of course Guggenheim Museum, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I just want to add that behind the Metropolitan Museum of Art, there is the Cleopatra's Needle, which dates back to 1425 BCE Egypt. Yes, this is authentic, and it was transported from Egypt. There are a few more interesting things in the area. For instance, this statue of the Polish king, which was built for the 1939 World's Fair in Corona Park, which I mentioned in my video when I did Corona Park. Or this Alice in Wonderland sculpture located around 76th Street. But again, it is impossible to mention it all in one short video, and I hope you all enjoyed this walk. And if so, please subscribe to the channel or leave a like. It won't cost you anything, and in return, it will give me the desperate desire for acceptance. Till then, I wish everyone a happy, joyful 2024, and remember, don't be like Rudolph and crash Santa into the tree. Stay safe out there, and I will see you next week in the new year. Take care, everyone.